Hello everyone, my name is Havish Madhupati. I'm the founder of Havish M Consulting and I will be your instructor for this course. First of all, a big thank you to all of you for purchasing the course. I guarantee you that the next 2 hours for you is going to be absolutely fabulous and you will learn and appreciate the beauty of dynamic arrays in Excel. I have been working on Excel for 20 plus years. I'm a Microsoft Office master, a Microsoft certified expert, and a Microsoft certified associate. I have also authored 15 books, 11 of which have been on Microsoft Excel. I would rate dynamic arrays as probably the biggest changes, as one of the biggest changes that has happened in Excel along with Power Query and Power Pivot. A little bit of background. Prior to dynamic arrays being there, some of you would be familiar with writing legacy array formulas for which you had to press Ctrl, Shift and Enter. If you haven't done this earlier, not to worry. In the first lecture, I will show you how we used to write array formulas earlier. Even though with dynamic arrays coming in, this has become redundant. Now do remember that dynamic arrays will only be supported for Microsoft 365. It will not be available for Microsoft 365 for the Mac. It will not be available for 2019 or 16. Even if you have Microsoft 365 with you, do notice that dynamic array support is slowly starting to get released for different subscribers. So if you're on the current channel, then you will get dynamic arrays. Otherwise, you will probably have to wait for a little bit more. The reason for this is that dynamic arrays are not available as a general availability rollout. And Microsoft is still in a beta stage and they haven't released it out to all the customers of Microsoft 365. But one thing is for sure that you do need to have Microsoft 365. Otherwise, you will never get dynamic arrays on your system. This is a table of content. This covers the various topics that I'm covering in this course. So I will explain how dynamic arrays work. There is also a new error that comes up called the spill error. So I'll explain what it is and how do you deal with it. We will see how we can refer to existing arrays, how to use a new function called transpose, how to work with unary operators, how to eliminate the need of dollar signs and use dynamic arrays as a replacement, how to replace sum product, how to count errors, create a sequence of dates and serial number, how to exclude weekends, new functions which is unique, sort, sort by, and filter. I will also tell you how dynamic arrays will make the old offset and index and match functions much more powerful. For that matter, dynamic arrays will even make the old VLOOKUP much more powerful. I will introduce you to the new function called XLOOKUP and then finally wrap up with the large function and a new function that allows you to declare variables, which is the let function. So we have a lot of ground to cover. Let's jump straight into it. All the very best. Do remember that dynamic arrays are a difficult topic. So if you're having trouble understanding everything in the first go, that's completely natural. Even when I started working with it a year back, everything seemed very different. So you will have to unlearn a bit so that you can relearn. But I give you utmost guarantee that once you learn dynamic arrays, you will never look at Excel the same way ever again. Welcome to the first lecture. Let us see how dynamic arrays work. If you look at column B, we have two words written here, hello and world. Now, if I wanted to find the length of these words, we could have written equal to length and then write a sum at the bottom. But imagine you wanted to get this answer using one single formula. Now, you would think that you can write sum of length of B6 and B7, but pause and try to do this on your computer. In all likelihood, you would notice that you end up getting an error. Now, the reason you are getting an error is because you cannot force the length function to find the length of a range at the same time. The reason is very simple, because the length function has been created to find the length of one particular cell. But now the dynamic arrays are there. When I press enter, you will notice that it gives us the length of B6 and B7 and then sums it up. Let's see how this is working. If I remove the sum function, you would notice that when I say length of B6 and B7, obviously these are two different results, so it cannot come in one single cell. So what does dynamic arrays do? It will automatically spill my result into two cells like this. Very smart, isn't it? Now look carefully at the formula bar. In B11, there is a formula which is length of B6, B7. But if you look carefully, the color of the formula in the formula bar, when I click on B12, changes to gray. Now this indicates that there is nothing in B12. For example, if I press delete, you will notice that nothing happens because there is no value, there is no formula in B12. There is only one single formula written in B11 that is spilling into multiple cells. Now, once we have these two numbers, obviously, if we say the sum, it will sum up those two numbers. So look at this like a step-by-step process. First, you want to generate a different result for both hello and world, and then you want to sum it up. Let's do one more example. Let us say we want to multiply the sales amount with all these profit margins one by one. This means I want to multiply 214 by 9%, 214 by 2%, 214 by 2%, 214 by 8%, and so on and so forth. Now, a lot of you would be used to doing this. We would say equal to $7 because we want to lock the cell, and then we select F7, F90. So let's do it once again. If I say $7 multiplied by F7, we get the result. And if I drag it down, we will get the answer. Obviously, in every cell, it is multiplying the profit margin by the sales amount, which is a constant. Now with dynamic arrays, we can write equal to, watch carefully, E7 multiplied by F7 colon F90. And you notice it is giving us the perfect result. That's very interesting, isn't it? For one, I haven't put the dollar sign. We don't need to. If you wanted to, you could have, but we don't need to. Also, you would wonder how can we multiply a constant, that means one cell, which is E7, with a range of cells. But that's just the way dynamic arrays work. They're very smart. If you try to multiply one value with a range of values, it understands intuitively that you want to multiply 214 with every single profit margin separately. And just like earlier, if you notice the formula bar, the color is black, but if you look at the other cells, the color is gray, which means that in all these cells except the first one, there is no formula. So if you press delete, nothing will happen. What will happen if I try to multiply an entire column with another column? So if I say equal to J7 colon J19 multiplied by K7 colon K19, very smartly, using one formula, it will give you all the results, which means that you don't have to write one formula and then drag it or copy and paste it. Imagine you have three values in a column and three values in a row. Now, what we want to do here is to write, watch carefully, I select all of these cells, so the 9 cells, equal to O7 colon O9 multiplied by P6 colon R6. Now what's going to happen here is that it is going to multiply 214 into 9%, 214 into 2%, 214 into 2%. In the next row, 476 into 9%, 476 into 2%, and 476 into 2%. You get the idea, right? Which means that every value in my column is being multiplied by every single value in the row. And you notice in one single formula, without having to use any dollar signs, we get all the 9 results. Very cool, isn't it? But there is a problem. What if I simply wanted to multiply 214 by 9%, 476 by 2%, and 372 by 2%? Now, in the previous example, you would have noticed that when I multiplied 3 values by 3 values, it actually created 9 results for us. which is great. But what if you simply wanted to multiply 1 by 1, which means 214 into 9%, 476 into 2%, and 372 into 2%. For this, we will have to first find out the transpose of 9, 2, and 2%, which would be equal to transpose. And now this transpose can be multiplied by O18 colon O20. And now you notice it is simply giving me three results, which is 214 into 9%, which is 19.26, 476 into 2%, which is 9.52, and 372 into 2%, which is 7.44. So this is a quick introduction of how dynamic arrays work. Now please make sure to practice all of this if you do have dynamic arrays with you. If you do not have dynamic arrays with you at the moment, not to worry, just make sure to watch the lecture a few times so that you really understand how dynamic arrays are working. Remember, so far we haven't used any new functions. I will be introducing you to some new functions later, but at the moment I haven't used any new functions. We all know sum and length, we all know how to use a multiplication operator. It's just that even without using new functions, dynamic arrays still make our formulas run much more efficiently. In the previous lecture, we saw how dynamic arrays work. Now, dynamic arrays can also create new problems for you. Now, because dynamic arrays have the ability of spilling into multiple cells, the problem is that if you already have a value, let's say there is a period here, and if I say all the values multiplied by all these values, obviously the values cannot overwrite the period that is already there because that is a stray value. So when I press enter, very smartly Excel will tell me that there is a spill error, which means that the spilled range is not blank. Now I need 13 rows for the formulas to come, but I don't have 13 rows with me. Now if I say select obstructing cells, it basically tells me which is the cell that has a problem in it, which is very smart. I can also say ignore error, but that will not really help because the error will still be there. And if I say edit in the formula bar, it just shows me the formula. So basically, you will have to ensure that because the formula requires 13 cells, there has to be a blank cell in all the 30. So when I remove the period, you notice that it automatically spills into all the other cells. Now you might be wondering that what if I put a value after the formula is written? For example, if I try to write 3 periods here, again you notice that you get an error because it is telling you that you're not allowed to write a value there because you're already writing a formula that is spilling into that particular cell. So I personally feel that Microsoft has handled this very nicely, and for a regular user, very smartly it tells us when not to make a mistake, and if we have made a mistake, it prompts us so that we have the opportunity to fix it. This example is very similar to the previous one. Now we have multiple cost prices and a corresponding markup percentage. So like we did earlier, I can write equal to select B6, B17 and multiply by C6, C17, and we get the results. Now imagine you want to multiply these numbers by the discount percentage. Now this would be equal to, watch carefully, equal to D6. Now I can either write D6 colon D17, and there's nothing wrong with that. You notice that if I multiply this by the discount percentage, we will get all the answers. But there is a much better way of doing this. Because the values in the column D are not created using a regular formula, these are dynamic arrays, I can simply write equal to D6 and then put a hash. And if you notice, it very smartly selects all the items in this array. And I can then multiply this by all my percentages and we get the value like this. Very smart, isn't it? This again is something we will see repeatedly in the next few lectures. So just make sure you are comfortable with this. The idea here is that because it's an array, which means that all the values are stored in one location, in one variable, I can refer to every single item in the array by simply writing d6. For example, if I say count of d6 and a hash, you notice it tells me that there are 12 values in that particular range. And you know the advantage of doing this? Tomorrow, if more values get added, like this, you would notice that the count changes to 15. Despite the fact that more rows have been added, I don't have to change my count formula. Because new records have been added in my dynamic array, it very smartly picks it up in the count formula as well. Of course, here there is an NA because now my D6 has 18 values in it, or rather 15 values in it, but my discount percentage is only available for 12 values. But the moment I put some more discount percentages here and we change it to F20, it will work perfectly. In this lecture, I will introduce you to a new function called transpose. Now remember that transpose has already been available on Excel in the paste special window. If I select the data and we go to paste special and select transpose, this works perfectly. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this. The only problem is that these cells are not linked to the original data, which means that if I change this to 4, 5 and 6, you notice that the change doesn't appear here. What we want to do is to simply write transpose select our array, and you notice in a single function we get the result. And the best part is that every single one of these values are linked to the original data set. So if I make a change here, 4, 5 and 6, you notice it works perfectly. At this point, I also want to show you what would happen if I add 2 more records below this. For example, I'm just going to remove this for a moment. And let me zoom out a little bit. Okay, let's say that we have our values like this. So we have 3 headings: serial number, ID, and the customer name. And then we have the numbers here and we have the customer name here. Now, obviously, if I add these values below, the transpose function doesn't know that my 9 has changed to 11, right? Obviously, how would it know? Now, there are 2 ways you can ensure that this becomes a dynamic formula. So just watch this. I want the 9 to be calculated by Excel automatically. That means that we shouldn't tell Excel that 9th is the last row where a value is there. Excel should find that on its own. So if I say match 9.99e plus 307 and I'm searching in column B, you notice the result will give me 9. Now don't bother with the formula. Just remember this as a generic formula. Whenever you write this particular formula saying match 9.99e plus 307 and you select a column, it will always tell you which is the last row with a number in it. Remember, it doesn't work with text values. If I do it with column D, you notice that it comes as an NA because there are no numbers here. But if I do it with column B, it tells me that the 9th row is the last row. And if you notice, if I put some more numbers, it will always tell me that in this case, the 16th row is the last row with a number in it. How do we use it? We can take this entire thing, which is giving us a number, and we can add B5 colon. Now we know that our first value is in B5 and the last value is in the 9th row. So the result will be B5, B9. Let me just put this here. Now this B5 colon B9 is coming as a text value which we have to convert into a range. To do this, we will have to say equal to indirect, and that will make sure that the text value B5 colon B9 has been converted indirectly into a range, and it just shows me the same value from here. Now you might be wondering, why are we going through all this hassle? The reason is very simple. If I copy some more values below my existing serial numbers, you would notice that this automatically picks it up. The reason is because the match function is dynamically finding out the last used row with a number in it. No matter how many numbers or records you add, this particular function will always give you all the results. Now that we have this, we can simply copy this, come back to transpose, and then we can just paste the formula here. And the final change that we want to make is to make sure that we want to take from B5 all the way up till D and the number. So this will give us, let me remove this. Okay, so if you notice, we have serial number 1, 2, 3, and 8. And the moment I add two more records below this, you notice that the transpose function has picked up those additional records. Now do remember that the transpose function will only work if you have dynamic arrays with you, but the concept of indirect and match that I have explained to you works with every version of Excel. So if you want to use this logic in some other formula or some other model that you have created, it will work perfectly. Let's say we have 6 names and we want to find out how many of these names have a length of 5. To do this, I can write equal to the length of B6 and B11. Like I told you earlier, even though length cannot be used with a range, it will automatically spill the results into 6 different cells, one for each name. So we have 4, 6, 5, 4, 5, 6. Then I can say equal to D6, which is 5, and the results will get converted into a binary true or false. So this is telling me that the first name is not 5 characters, the second name is not 5 characters, only the third and the fifth name are 5 characters. If I change it to 4, then the results change. If I change it to 6, then the results change, like this. Now, you would think that because a false is a 0 and a true is a 1, why can't we simply find out the sum of all these results? But that doesn't work. Despite the fact that a true and a false in Excel is actually nothing but a 1 and a 0. For example, if I say equal to F9 plus F8, it will give me 1 because Excel considers true as a 1 and false as a 0. If I say true and true, it gives me 2. You might wonder that if it is working here, then why does it not work here? Now it's a little difficult to explain, but you just have to understand that when we are using a dynamic array, the true and false which is coming here cannot be aggregated using a sum function. So we have to convert these into actual ones and zeros. For this, we will use a unary operator, which means that I will put two dashes or a double negative before my entire formula, and you notice that all it has done is it has converted my false into a 0 and my true into a 1. If you want to read about this, the topic is called unary operator. You can simply Google this and try to understand what this is. It is an advanced topic, but it's not in the scope of this training, so I'll not be explaining what it is. The short answer is that the unary operator simply converts your trues and false into a 0 and a 1. And now because it's a 0 and a 1, I can say the sum of all these zeros and ones and the result will be 2. So very smartly, now it is telling me that there are two names that have a character length of exactly 5. If I say 6, there are again 2. If I say 4, there are again 2. Let me change one of these names to Havish. And if you notice, how many names have 6 characters? There are 3 names. So Havish, Summer, and Summer. Like this. We have done this earlier, but I want to do this example once again. Now here we have 8 names with the previous year sales and we want to create a target for next year. Now this would be equal to $B6 multiplied by 1 plus C $5. We are putting a dollar on the first column and a dollar on the top row. Once we do this, we can simply copy and paste the formula, and you notice it works perfectly like this. But let me show you an alternative. When you want to multiply multiple values in a column with multiple values in a row, we can simply write equal to, just select the entire column, multiply it by 1 plus the entire row. And you notice in a single click, we will get the same results. Isn't this much easier? For one, you don't have to copy and paste anything. And second, you don't have to bother with the dollar signs, because a lot of users might mess around with the dollars. They might not know how it is working, accidentally make a mistake. But by using dynamic arrays, you notice that we have simplified the formula because the dollar signs are not required right now. And also it saves you the effort of copying and pasting the formula multiple times. In this example, we have 12 names with the cost price, the markup, and the discount percentage. Now, if we were doing this manually, this is how we would have done it. This is the old way of doing it, which would be equal to sum product. The array 1 is the cost price. Array 2 would be 1 plus the markup percentage. And array 3 will be 1 minus the discount percentage. And the result would be 369214. Now, let's look at the other ways in which we can do this. Now, before I show you the correct formula, I want to show you step by step how this is working. If I say equal to all my values multiplied by all my markup percentage, we get these results, which means that if I say 1 plus, it will now show me the original cost price plus the markup, which is 10% of 21,100. So this is 23,100, right? And finally, we can now write multiplied by 1 minus d5 d60, and you notice it gives us 22407, which is basically 21,000 into 10%, which is added to the cost price, and then you're reducing 3% from it. This would be the correct formula. How do you sum it up? We can now simply write equal to sum, and you get the final result. In fact, we don't need the third formula because this would be the correct one. So this is the old way of doing this, which is sum product. And now you can replace that by a dynamic array formula. Now you might wonder that if sum product is already there, then why do we need the dynamic array? For one, the sum product is very, very limited in scope. For example, the sum product can only take multiple arguments that it is multiplying. For example, I cannot select one array that I want to divide by another array. The beauty of doing this with simply our operators is that it is fully in our control. For example, if I wanted to find out the average, we can change it to the average. How do you find out the average if you were doing a sum product? Because a sum product will only find the sum of the products. Now, in our case, for example, if I wanted to divide it, I could have divided it. For example, I want to find the average of all my cost price multiplied by 1 plus the markup divided by the discount percentage. Even though the logic here does not make any sense, I hope you see where I'm coming from. The operators that we are using in our manual formula give us full control, something that is not possible when you're using a sum product formula. Does that mean that sum product formula is absolutely useless right now? Absolutely. Sum product used to be a great formula for what it did. But now that dynamic arrays have been launched in Excel, sum products have essentially become redundant because we can now create any combination however we like by simply combining the operator and the aggregation. In this example, we have 4 quarters. Each of the quarter has 10 values and there are certain errors that are coming in. Now imagine you want to count the errors. Now, even though we have an option in Excel to count the blank cells and we have an option to count as per any condition, for example, we have COUNTIF, we don't really have the option to calculate or rather count the number of errors. So let's see how we do this. I will first convert every error into a 1 or a 0, which means if I say is error and I choose my entire range, you notice we get some results which is either true or it is false. So you get a true here and you get a true here. If you remember what I told you earlier, you can use a unary operator like this to convert this into zeros and ones. And once you have done that, you can simply find a sum and find out that there are two errors in our data like this. Let me show you an alternative. Now here we want to not use the unary operator. We will keep it a little simpler. So I want to find out the is error. We want to use an if statement to say that if there is an error, then I want a 1, otherwise we want a 0. So basically we are getting the same intermediate result that we were getting earlier. Earlier we were converting the true and false into ones and zeros by using the unary operator. In this case we are using an if statement, but the final result will be exactly the same. And it will tell us that there are two errors in our data set like this. If you notice, if I add two more errors, the result changes to 4. Which one should you be using? I leave that up to you. The second formula is absolutely correct. There's nothing wrong with it. But I think you should get in the habit of using unary operators. There are a number of reasons why unary operators are better, because these are very powerful operators, and there are a number of cases wherein using a unary operator will make the formula much more efficient, much more cleaner, and much shorter. Here we have the year 2019, we have the month, we have the start date, and we have the end date. I've already given you a sample result like this, and this is what we want to create. This is a new function which is available in dynamic arrays. It's called sequence. How many rows do we want? The number of rows that we want would be very simple. We want 12 rows, right? So this would be the end date minus the start date plus 1. We only want one column. The starting value should be a date, which is the year and the month and the day. And finally, the step counter, which is 1. And the result will be, let me change it to a date format. And the result comes like this. But would it change if I change the end date to 90? Absolutely. Please allow me to change the date format. Okay, so that you can see this and understand this properly. So very smartly, if you notice, when I change this to 22nd, it automatically tells me a range of dates from the 6th all the way up till the 22nd. Very cool, right? But what would happen if you also want to see the serial numbers on the left? Now, because the dates can be changed by the user as and when they want, you obviously want the serial numbers also to come automatically. So we can use the same function called sequence. How many rows do we want? I want to count the number of dates that I have in column G. One column, one is the starting value and one is the counter. And you notice it gives me 6 serial numbers, and whenever my dates will increase, automatically the corresponding serial numbers will also increase like this. So we have seen how to use the sequence functions to create a list of dates as well as a serial number. This example is slightly difficult, so we will spend some time on this. I want to create a sequence of dates that exclude weekends. Let me just correct the spelling here. Excellent. So we have dates from the 8th of July till the 30th of September. And I want to create a series of dates that will eliminate all the weekends automatically. Let's first create a series of dates. Sequence. How many rows do we want? We want C5. minus C4 plus 1. One column, the starting value is my starting date and the step counter is 1. And we get a series of dates from the 8th of July till the 30th of September. Now, if you wanted to eliminate all the weekends, we could have written equal to or weekday, and I will say that the weekday that we have in E4 hash as the return type 2, which means that 1 is Monday and 7 is Sunday, which would mean that 6 is Saturday and 7 is Sunday. So if I say that this is equal to 6 or my weekday of E4 hash comma 2 is equal to 7. Now a smarter way of doing this would be to simply not have to write or. We can say that the weekday of E4 hash comma 2 is less than 6, which means that it is not 6 or 7. We will get a result of trues and false. So we are getting somewhere. The only challenge is how are you going to eliminate all of this? Of course, one option is to apply a filter and then filter out everywhere where you're getting a false. But this is not the right way of doing this. What we will do here is we will use a new function called filter, where I say that my array is what we have just created, which is the sequence of dates. And the second argument is what is it that we want to include. Now, what do we want to include? We want to include wherever the weekday of this entire sequence comma 2 is less than 6. And if you notice carefully, we have the 8th of July, the 9th, the 10th, and then 11th and 12th has automatically been filtered out. To explain it to you a little better, I will just copy the formula once again, just the sequence. And if you compare both of these, you would notice we have fewer records in the first column because we have 8th, 9th, and 10th, but then 11th and 12th is not available in the first one. Why? Because we have filtered out all the weekdays that are less than, or I'm sorry, we have filtered out all the weekdays that are more than 6. That means we have only retained the weekdays that are 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. So a little difficult. We will do some more examples on the filter function, but just make sure to look at the lecture and understand this concept very well before you proceed. A new function that has been added is unique. Very simple. If you want to find a list of all the unique customer names, you can simply write equal to unique and it will tell you that there are 6 unique customer names. If you want to find the count, you can simply say count A and it will tell you that there are 6 unique customers who have purchased from you. Similarly, if you want to find the unique shipping modes, we can write A9, A26 and it tells us there are 3 unique shipping modes. Very, very simple, and it saves you the trouble of selecting a column and then going to remove duplicates and then removing it. Now imagine that you had 2 records which was exactly the same. Standard class, Darren Pass and 291. Watch this. If I say unique and I select my array as the entire range which has 3 columns in it, what will happen is that it will return a result that looks like this. If you notice carefully, the first row, standard class Darren Powers and 291, has only been retained one time, not 2 times. Very smart, isn't it? Again, this is something which we could have done by selecting data and then remove duplicates, but that would not have been dynamic. Now I can do it dynamically using a dynamic array function called unique. Let's take one more example. Let me also write unique for a single column so that this can act like a reference for you. So I say count A of all these values. Okay, let's look at this example. Now, let's say we have these 6 unique customer names and I want to create a unique list like this, which means that if the same customer name is appearing another time, I don't want that name to be shown in my unique list. This is just a recap of something that we've already done, but this is a good recap and very important. So when I say unique, obviously it will only show me 6 names because Darren is appearing 2 times. But if I add Darren, or rather if I add Philina one more time and one more name, you notice that this name doesn't get added because the data is only going up till the 14th row, not up to the 16th row. How do you do this? For this, remember you have to find out the last used row in your worksheet. Now, if, right, just think about it. If I say equal to n colon n, what does it do? It says it's a spill error. Now that doesn't seem to work very well. If I say equal to, and I know that my first value is n8 and I say n, how do I make the last number 16 dynamic? Now you would say, why can't we simply do what we did earlier, which is match with column n? But remember that will not work. Why? Because it only works when you have numbers in a column. For this, we will have to use an intermediate step. So I'll just create a sequence where I count the number of values that I have in column n. And this way I get a corresponding number like this. And now we can refer not to column m, or rather not to column n, but to column n. I'm sorry, the other way around, not to column n, but to column m. And this will tell me that 16th is the last row. We can take this, put it instead of writing this 14, concatenate. Remember, we also have to use a indirect now. And my result will now look like this. Very cool, isn't it? This means that if more names are getting added, do you see every time I add a name, it gets added to the unique list. But if I add a name that is already there in the list, it does not get added once again, like this. If you want to create a drop-down validation, you can simply go to data and then data validation. And like I showed you earlier, you will have to create a list where you know that the first value is in Q8, but you don't know how many items are there in that array. So you simply put a hash here and you notice we get a drop down like this. So very elegant way of creating a drop down, which is a drop down with all the unique names in it. In this lecture, I want to introduce 2 new functions to you, sort and sort by. Here we have 13 customer names, the shipping mode and the sales amount. Now imagine you want to sort all the sales amount in a descending order. We can simply write equal to sort, select the array, and it will simply get sorted in a ascending order. If you want a descending order, you will go to the optional argument called the sort order and you can choose descending, which is -1, and the order becomes descending. If you want to see the customer names as per the descending order of sales, we can write equal to sort, select the array. Now in the sort index, if I put E7 hash, you notice that that doesn't work. A lot of people feel that this is how you sort a list of names as per another column. Now, if you try to do this by The sort by column, sort by row, again you notice it doesn't work properly. The correct way of doing this is to use the sort by function, where you can choose the array, which is the customer name. Which array do you want to sort it by, which is my sales amount, in a descending order. And you notice this will tell me that these are all the customer names in an order as per the descending order of sales. For example, Jack is at the top because he was 490. Brian is second because Brian was 473, and so on and so forth. If you want to get all the three columns as a result, you can simply say sort by, choose all the three columns. The by array would be the third column and in descending, and this will give you the result as the entire data set. So we have all the 13 records in it, but all the records have been sorted as per the sales amount. In the last lecture, we saw how sort and sort by can be used. In this lecture, we will see how the filter function can be used. Now, if you remember, in the weekend example, I gave you a short introduction of how the filter function works. But this time, let's do it in a little more detail. Here's the problem statement. We have 18 transactions. We have the shipping mode and we have the sales amount. What we want is simply the first class transactions where the sales value is between 0 to 400. So if I say equal to A9 colon A26 equal to first class, what result would you expect? You would expect a series of trues and false, which would be like this. Makes sense, right? If I again say equal to the sales amount is greater than equal to 0, we get a series of trues, obviously, because all the numbers are greater than 0. But if I make it 200, you notice that some of these become true and some of these become false. And we can do the same thing one more time, where we say that D9 to D26 is less than equal to G5, and we get some trues and no false because all the numbers are less than, one second, D9 to D26. I'm sorry, this has to be C9 to C26. So you get some trues and you get one false here because this number is greater than 400. Now, if I multiply the first one with the second one with the third one, we will get a series of zeros and ones. Now, you might wonder why we did not have to do a unary operator, but that's just the way it works, because this time you're multiplying three corresponding columns, not adding up all the true and false in a single column. Multiplying them will actually result in a 1 and a 0, not in a true and a false. Right? Now, when are we getting a 1? When all the three columns have a true in it, like this. So even if there is a single false, like in this one, there are two trues but one false, the result will come as a 0. So when we get this result, what is it telling us? It is telling us that wherever there is a 1, that's the record that we are interested in. So if you look carefully, 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's actually the next one. One second. Let me do that once again. So we have this one, we have this one, and then we have this one, and then finally this one. These four records meet all the conditions, which mean that it is first class shipping mode and the sales amount is greater than 0 and less than equal to 400. How do we combine all of this in a filter function? Let me do that once again. We can write filter. Our array is all the three columns. What do we want to include? We want to say that A8, A26 is equal to A2. This has to be multiplied by C8, C26, which is greater than or equal to 0, and this has to be multiplied again by C8 C26 less than equal to 400, and the result will be this. So we're getting first class, the name, and the sales amount. Let's just copy the headings once again. And what is it telling me? That these are the four records which are in first class shipping with a value between 0 to 400. If I say the value should be between 200 and 400, there are only two transactions that meet this condition. If I change it to standard class, it will tell us that there are six transactions that are standard class and between 200 to 400. You get the idea, right? Now, this is very handy because the filter function means that you don't have to go back to the original data set, apply a filter, create a different sort on every single column, and then copy and paste it in a new location. You can use a single dynamic filter function to extract the results as and how you require. There is no limit to the number of inclusions you can add. I'm sorry, you don't put a comma here. You can put as many multiplications as you want to, like this. So you can have as many columns as a condition that you want to. And remember, one column can be used as multiple conditions as well. For example, in our case, we are using column C as two conditions. The first one being that the number is greater than 0, and the next one being that the number has to be less than 400. In this lecture, we will look at the offset function. We have 14 months and the corresponding sales amount. We want the user to be able to choose the number of months and the direction. So if I say first, it should show me 196, 109, 185, 110. If I choose last, it should show me 138, 324, 345, and 231. Let's see how we do this. If I say equal to offset, I can keep my reference as B5. Now from B5, I want to come, assuming that we want to take the last few values, we want to come to the 19th row. Now to come from the 5th row till the 19th row, I know that I have to come 14 rows down. How do I get that number 14? So where it says rows, I can simply count the number of numbers that I have in the sales column. That will give me 14. The column is obviously 0. Now the height would be minus 4 because I want to go back, or rather go up and select 4 rows, and the width will be 1, or rather 2, because I want to select two different columns, the month column and the sales column. And the result, if you notice, will look like this. With your permission, let me copy the same format here. So I'll just convert everything into a date format, which will be DDMMM and, oh, I'm sorry, we just want to keep MMM and YY. Wonderful. So we're getting this result. Let me also keep the same font size and the same font face as well. Perfect. The serial number is very simple. If you want to get the serial number, we can simply write equal to sequence. The number of rows would be counting column G 111, and we will get the serial numbers like this. Now, if the user changes this to 2, we want only 2 months to be shown. So we can write here that this minus 4 should actually be minus 1 into the value, which is I6. And this time we get 4 results. If I change it to 2, I get 2 results. Change it to 6, I get 6 results. The final thing left is we also need to give the user the ability to choose the direction. So we will say that if the user has chosen the value in case 6 as last, then my formula should be this. Otherwise, my formula should be very similar but a little different. It will be offset from B5. Now from B5, I want to come to B6. That means I want to come one row down, zero column. The height will be 2 and the width will be 2. And remember, the height will actually come from I6. So if you notice carefully, if I change the last to first, it is now showing me Jan and Feb of 20. If I change it to last, it is showing me Jan and Feb of 2021. And of course, the numbers can be changed as well, like this. Now, please remember, even though offset has the ability of giving you multiple results, offset is not a dynamic array formula. That means that offset will still work in older versions of Excel, but offset has become much more powerful now because we have dynamic arrays. So I know it is a little tricky because it is a function with limited capability in the older versions and with extensive capabilities in the newer versions, but that's just the way that it works. In this example, we have 10 customers with their ID, city, region, and sales amount. We also have the IDs that we want to find out. So 123, 456, 789, 235, and 673. Now, if I try to do a VLOOKUP, there is a bit of a problem that we will have. If you look carefully, we will not get a result for the second, the third, and the fifth entry. Now, the second one isn't there, obviously, because the ID doesn't exist in our data set. We're not getting 235, despite the fact that 235 is available in the dataset, and we're not getting 673, despite the fact that 673 is available in the dataset. What is the reason? 235 is a text, and here 235 is a number, and here 673 is a text, and here 673, or rather 673 is a number here and it is a text here. Now, because the data type is not matching, obviously VLOOKUP is not at fault. It will not give us the result. So I can write index and I can say in my column C and column D, I want to search for the row number for 123 in column C with an exact match, and my result is in the second column. Now again, you notice we get the same 3 errors, obviously because the data type is still not matching. But by using the index function, we have a different capability. So I can convert my I5 into a number by using value, and I can change my column C again into a numerical column by using the value function. And this time you notice we're getting a result for 235 and 673, despite the fact that we did not have the same data type in our data set. Of course, this error will still be there. To avoid that error, we can say if error, and we can say does not exist, and we get the result like this. Right? So really good example. This is a very common problem. Our VLOOKUPs and index match does not work sometimes because our data type does not match between our lookup value and the original data set. And that is where we can use the value function like this. Now, if we had kept our value not as I5 but as I5 and I9, you will notice that you don't even have to write a formula and then copy and paste it in all the other cells. Using a single formula, it gets copied into all the 5 IDs like this. Using dynamic arrays, you can even get multiple results from a VLOOKUP. For example, with the same data set, if I wanted the customer name, city, region, and sales, and before I continue, I just want to make sure that at least the data type is matching. So let's make this 673. Perfect. Now, if I want to get all the 4 columns as a result, we can write VLOOKUP. The lookup value is 123. The table array is C, D, E, F, and G. And in our column number, rather than writing number 2, 3, 4, 5 separately, we can simply write 2, 3, 4, and 5 like this. And what that will do is it will return 4 different results for us using a single formula. Now, a small note here, if you try to write I5 colon I9, you notice that it doesn't work properly in the sense that, in fact, we don't need the 456, so I'll remove that. It doesn't work properly because if you are looking as the lookup value among multiple cells, then you will not be able to get multiple column results. I'm not quite sure why that happens, but you can only get one of these. So you can either search for multiple lookup values or you can search for multiple columns. So in this case, you will have to copy it down manually, but at least you will not have to copy and paste the formula with different column numbers. As an extension, let me also show you how you can use the XLOOKUP function. A little different, we can write XLOOKUP. The lookup value is 123. The lookup array is C, D, E, F, and G. I'm sorry, the lookup array is only column C, and my return array is D, E, F, and G, and that's it. You don't have to give the column number in the XLOOKUP function, and you will get all the results like this. Here, if you say I5 and I9, you notice again we get the same problem, which is that it doesn't work. So you can either choose multiple lookup values or you can choose multiple columns as the result, which means that we will have to copy and paste the formula down manually. Let us look at the problem statement. We have 14 months with the sales amount, and I want to find out the 3 largest numbers. So let me just move my formulas down. Excellent. Now to find the 3 largest numbers, we can say small, select our array, and the key value will be 3. But this only tells me the 3rd largest number. So let me highlight it. So let's select our 3 largest numbers. So we can see that 324, 345, and 231 are our 3 largest numbers. Hold on. Okay, I accidentally wrote small, so let me write large. And as you can see, 231 is our 3rd largest number. But what do you do if you want to see all the 3 largest numbers? So in a curly brace, we can write 1, 2, 3, and we get 345, 324, and 231. But how do you make it dynamic? We've already done this earlier. We can write row indirect 1 colon and 3. In fact, you know what? I don't think we have done this earlier. Nevertheless, let me explain how this works. How the row function works is that if I say, please watch, if I say 1 colon 3, let me just write 1 colon 3. And if I say indirect 1 colon 3, it doesn't work, which is okay. If I say a row of indirect of 1 colon 3, then it tells me 1, 2, 3 like this. I hope that makes sense. So we are using indirect to convert 1 colon 3 into $1 $3, and when I say row $1 $3, the result comes as 1, 2, 3. So if I change it to 5, we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like this. That's exactly what we're doing here. So this is dynamic. If I change it to 2 or change it to 5, you notice we get the corresponding number of largest numbers, which is great. How do you find the average? Now we can write average of F5 hash, or if you wanted to write everything in a single formula, we can simply copy the entire thing and I can write average, and it will give you the average of the top 5 or maybe the top 3 largest numbers. Now imagine you wanted to find the average of certain positions, let's say the third, fourth, fifth smallest number. Now, this means that the 1 has to be dynamic as well as the F3 has to be dynamic. So I'll just copy the same formula. We will change the endpoint to 5 and we will change the starting point to 1. So what's happening here is that we are creating E6 concatenated with a colon and E17. That means 3 colon 5. And when I say row 3 colon 5, I'll get row number 345, which means that it will only tell us the third smallest, fourth smallest, and the fifth smallest numbers. We can verify this. If you look at this data set, let me quickly sort it for you. If I sort it largest to smallest, if you notice the third, fourth, fifth smallest numbers are 110, 117, and 130, and the average is 119. That's exactly what we're getting here. If I selected the four smallest numbers starting from the third position, that means third, fourth, fifth, sixth position, then my average is 123.75 and it would be 123.75. So a little tricky to set up, but very, very useful, because imagine you have a data set with 10,000 records in it and you want to find the average of the bottom 500. Without having to sort and filter the data, you can simply use a small with a row and an indirect to calculate the result. In this lecture, we will look at the let function. Now, let function necessarily are not dynamic array functions, even though they can be combined with dynamic array functions. Let function was announced in March 2020, and remember, it will only be available for Excel for Microsoft 365. If you want to see the official documentation, you can go to the Microsoft website and read this. Do remember that at the moment it is only available for Office insiders and they're still optimizing the features, which means that even if you have Microsoft 365 with you, there is a possibility that you might not have it right now. But this is a very powerful function, and I thought let me cover it and let me show you how you can combine it with the filter function. So the same example that we had done earlier, we want to find out the records that are between 150 and 300 and the shipping mode is B. This would be filter. I can speed this up because we've already done this earlier. I can filter. The inclusion would be where my shipping mode values are greater than equal to 150 multiplied by my shipping mode values, which is less than equal to 300. And without any problem, oh, there is a problem. Wait, I should not have closed the parentheses here. Without any problem, you notice we're getting the result and everything is working perfectly. But here's my question to you. If you notice, we had to write this part E6, E19 two times. And this might be a little irritating, right? Because why do you want to write the same thing two times? This is where we can create a variable inside our function. So we can say let my val be equal to E6 colon E19. And the advantage of doing this is that because we have given a name to E6 E19, which is any variable name, I've called it my val. I can simply write my val and I can simply write my val. And you notice we get the same result. And the advantage here is that the formula looks much cleaner now and much more descriptive for the end user, because rather than having to write this part multiple times, we are only writing one single time, right? In this problem, we have two data sets. We have a list of new purchases. So there are 13 customers who have purchased from us in the month of July. And we have 6 customers who have already purchased from us in the month of Jan to June. So if I go through these customers one by one, I want to validate whether they have already purchased from us in the past, which means that they're not a new customer. For example, Darren has purchased from us, Philina, Mick have not. Lycoris has purchased, Jack, Maria, Vivek have not, and Melanie has. And these new customers, the one that I'm highlighting right now, this is what we want to highlight as our new customers. Let's see what we do. So the first thing is to write VLOOKUP. We're searching for C7, C19 in E7, E12, column number 1 and an exact match. Since we had 13 customers, it will give us 13 corresponding results, which means that wherever a customer was already there in the old data, the name is shown, otherwise a blank is shown, or rather a NA error is shown. Once we have this, we then want to say that the length, and this will give us the length, after which we want to say that if the length is greater than 1, then we want a blank, otherwise we want a value. So this way we have managed to hide all the customers which were already purchasing from us in the past, and we have an NA for all the ones who are new to the business. Now obviously you don't want to show this as an NA, you want to see the actual name. Since we want to see the actual name, we can say that if the value is NA, then my result should be the same result, C7, C90. And once we do that, you would notice that from the original data, only those names have been highlighted who have not purchased from us in the past. Now we also want to filter this data, right? Because all the blank cells should go away. To do this, we can add a let function. We can give a name called, let's say, myval. And this entire 3 line would be myval. And the formula would be very simple. We want to filter myval. And the condition would be when the length of myval is greater than 1. That means from the 13 results that we had, we only want to filter out those values where the length is greater than 1. That means that a name was present. And the result would be like this. So we can see the 6 customers, or rather the 7 customers who are new to the business. If you wanted to make this a little better, you could have given a few more names. So let me just copy the entire formula. So we can come back, and since we're using C7, C19 a couple of times, let's say that our lookup range is C7, C19, and then we can say that our search range is E7, E12. This would be the old customer list, and then because we have given these two names, my C7, C19 can be replaced with our lookup range, and then we will have to put that 2 more times. So we have a lookup range here and a lookup range here, and this will also become our search range. So the same result, and the advantage of doing this is that we have essentially created a simple function where 3 names have been given: lookup range, search range, and myval. And the final formula would actually just be this. So filter of myval and length of myval. I would suggest you can do either one that you prefer. I mean, it is completely a call that you have to take. Personally, I would like to use the second one. Despite the fact that this one looks a little longer and we're giving 3 names, it makes the final formula look really clean. And also the fact that you have independent control over all the 3 names means that if you want to modify this formula and add something in the future, that would be easy as well. Here we have a list of 13 customers, and the ones that are duplicate have already been highlighted. So we have Darren Pass coming 3 times and Lycoris coming 2 times. What we want to do is to find out the number of unique customers. To do this, we will write equal to count fs, and in C7, C19, we are searching for the same thing, C7, C19. Now, this will give us a result. So you can see that we have 3, 1, 3, 2, 1, 3, which means that Darren Pass is mentioned as 3, which means that the name is appearing more than one time. It is appearing 3 times. Now we can find out whether it is equal to 1 or not. So if we say not equal to 1, it will give us a list of binary results. So we'll get trues and false. So if you notice carefully, the names that are getting duplicated are true and all the other ones are false. Let's convert these into numbers. So let's multiply this by 1 and the rest is easy. We can simply sum these up and it will tell us. Let me just check. So this looks all right, and we want to say sum of all of this. Excellent. And it tells us there are 5 duplicate values. Just to confirm that the result is correct, if I copy Seth one more time, you would notice that the number changes to 7. What if you want to create a parallel list? That means that for each of these 13 transactions, you want to get 13 other transactions that will also have the number in it. That means we want Darren Pass 1, then we want Felina Ober 1, but after which we want Darren Pass 2, and so on and so forth. This is very helpful because when you're working with a VLOOKUP with duplicate values, you want to create a duplicate list which will also have a unique number at the end. To do this, we will start by writing the unique value. So the unique will very simply give us a list of all the unique values. On this, we want to concatenate a blank, and we also want to concatenate COUNTIFS C17, C19. But in the criteria, we will only write unique here. So what's going to happen is that the result will look like this. Let me just confirm the formula once. So we are looking at the unique, and then we've done a concatenation. Then we're looking at the COUNTIFS, and we're looking at, okay, I think I mistyped. This should be 7 and 7. So what's going to happen is that we will, okay, still not working. One moment. C7 and C19. Perfect. So we'll get these results. So what's happening is that COUNTIFS, if I copy this separately, and I put it in a different cell, you notice the result comes like this. It only gives us the numbers. And then when we're looking at the unique only tells us the unique values which are there. And of course, when we concatenate the two, you get the result. If you also want to sort the data, you can then sort it. And the result will be sorted like this as well. So very cleanly, it is telling us Brian, Chris, Darren, and the number of times that Darren is coming, Jack, Lycoris, and so on and so forth. Now, some of you might say that what if we don't want to see the unique values only with the number, but we want to see every single customer name with the number? This is much simpler. We don't need a dynamic array function for this. You write the original value, concatenate with count if, and the range here would be C7 with a dollar and then C7 without a dollar. The criteria would be C7. And if I copy this down, we will get the result like this. Let me also add a space here. So remember, the difference is that in this one, it is giving you Darren 3 times. So we have 1, we have 2, and we have 3. And all the 3 have been mentioned as Darren Pass 1, 2, and 3. In the previous formula that we created, it is only telling us the total count. That means it is telling us how many times is that person appearing. Both have their own advantages. This one is a fairly simpler formula. This one is a little more complicated. It uses dynamic arrays, but very, very advantageous.